Breaking tonight, hours ago, and with just 3 days left in office, the announcement that President Obama is reducing prison sentences for more than 200 inmates, including former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning. Welcome to the first 100 days, everyone. I'm Martha McCallum. So back in 2010, Private Chelsea Manning, then known as Bradley, was convicted for leaking classified government and military documents to WikiLeaks. Documents that touched off a Taliban killing spree, according to American intel agencies. Manning served 7 years of a 35-year sentence and is now set to be free in months. But that may not be the most controversial announcement tonight. In moments, Charles Krauthammer joins us on the Manning story, along with news that you've not heard much about tonight, but you will, because the president also ordered the release of the terror leader who was tied to more than 100 attacks on U.S. soil back in the 90s. But first, let's go to Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge with the fallout on Manning. Catherine, what can you tell us tonight?
Well, thank you, Martha. In this pardon application, Manning's lawyer says the leaks never hurt the United States. But tonight, two intelligence sources confirmed to Fox News that after military reports from Afghanistan were leaked in 2010, the Taliban went on a killing spree, taking out everyone who seemed to fit the description of informants working with the United States. That is not to say human spies were killed, but the sources said there is no question people died, and it made recruiting human sources that much harder for the U.S. in the future. I was in the courtroom 7 years ago when Manning, now Chelsea Manning, was sentenced to 35 years for giving classified information to WikiLeaks, including videos, incident reports from Afghanistan and Iraq, detainee military reviews from the Guantanamo camps, as well as State Department cables. Mr. Obama's decision does mean Manning can be freed as early as May 17th. The founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, told Fox News in a recent interview that he would come to the United States if Manning was freed. Today, a former Justice Department official told Fox News that leniency for Manning from Mr. Obama would make it harder to bring charges against Assange in the future.
If the United States government says we are going to pardon Manning for those offenses, I think it makes it that much tougher to then say.
Polls show that Donald Trump will take office as the least popular incoming president in 40 years. Both the ABC News Washington Post poll and the CNN ORC poll show that a majority of Americans view Trump unfavorably. In response, the president-elect tweeted, quoting, "The same people who did the phony election polls and were so wrong are now doing approval rating polls. They are rigged, just like before." The Trump campaign also blames the negative tone on the media trying to stir up conflict. For example, 4 years ago, the Associated Press tweeted this about the inauguration, quoting, "A day pulsing with history draws the masses to President Barack Obama's second inauguration." Yesterday, AP tweeted, quote, "Hundreds of thousands expected to clog the nation's capital for Donald Trump's inauguration." Several outlets have also highlighted a list of inauguration protests and potential unrest. Martha.
All right, Trace, thank you. Joining me now with more, and his reaction is Trump supporter and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Newt, good to see you tonight. He's also the author of the new thriller Treason. Newt, good to see you. Those numbers aren't so hot. And Donald Trump is claiming that they're not for real, that the numbers that we saw during the election weren't for real, and these aren't either. Do you believe that?
Oh, look, I think that he is the most controversial person to become president in modern times. I think the numbers are probably, let's say that's 5 or 8 or 10 points better than they're saying it is. The underlying reality is that on Friday, Donald J. Trump becomes president of the United States. And Mike Pence becomes vice president of the United States, and the system moves onward. Now, I think he's going to be much more like Prime Minister Thatcher than like most American presidents. She was such a controversial figure. She was so determined to defeat socialism and to change Great Britain to a more productive society that the left just hated her. And that's part of what Trump is up against. This is not a standard election. This is not a normal period. He represents real change, and real change scares the left.
Let's take a look at what he said to Ainsley Earhardt a little bit earlier today about Twitter, because there's just essentially been a lot of chaos going back and forth between him and the intel agencies, and a lot of it comes through that venue. So here's that.
What about Twitter? You going to continue to tweet?
Yeah, look, I don't like tweeting. I have other things I could be doing. But I get very dishonest media, very dishonest press. And it's my only way that I can counteract.
Wise decision on his part?
No, look, I hope he continues to tweet. I am very much in the group that believes that Donald Trump has to be Donald Trump. He got here despite everything. He beat 16 other Republicans. He beat a Secretary of State with $1 billion and the elite media on her side. He's done it his way. And his way is to be transparent. Yes, he makes mistakes, but they're out in the open. And he learns from his mistakes.
Here's what I see. I go back to the campaign period, and you look at what he would do when things looked like they were kind of sliding off the rails. And it feels a little bit like that now, with all of this back and forth on Twitter and the focus on all of this, some petty stuff, some very real sort of acerbic back and forth with the intel community. And what he would do then is get out on the road and give substantive speeches that were based on issues that people cared about. Wouldn't it behoove him at this point to sit back, to let people sort of take it all in over the next 72 hours without the fog of all of this nasty back and forth? And then the next thing they see is a presidential Donald Trump standing on that podium and delivering a speech that makes them stand up and go, wow, this is quite interesting. This is a person of substance.
Well, I mean, look, that's certainly an alternative reality. What people got to understand is this is President Donald Trump. He's not going to turn around suddenly and show up and look like he is a Harvard Law graduate doing things with the elegance of a Yale member of Skull and Bones. He is going to be rough and tumble. He's a guy who built buildings. He's a guy who appeals to blue-collar workers. He's blunt. He's direct. He counterpunches always. You hit him, he's going to hit back. That's who he is. That's who got elected president, and I think that's fine.
But don't you think he cares about these numbers, Newt? Because he cared about them during the course of the campaign. He would get, a little back on his heels and be concerned about the numbers, and then change tactic a little bit. It doesn't feel like that's what he's doing in this moment.
No, at this moment he is charging forward. But I have to say again, in a lot of ways, I'm on his side. I think the performance of the senior intelligence leadership has been beyond disgraceful. I don't see any reason why Trump should feel bad about saying that it was disgraceful. I can't imagine them being as incompetent as they have been in recent days.
But the truth of the matter is that he's going to get his own team here in a couple of days, Newt. And so he doesn't need to get into the mud on some of these issues. He doesn't need to attack John Lewis. He could let all that stuff lie and sort of give himself a moment, because it is a big day on Friday. And I realize, that he's going to give a speech. I hope he'll give a speech that's true to who he is. And I think that's what everybody expects. But it is a big moment. You can't just write it off like, it's not a big deal and he's not going to go up there as a sort of presidential figure on Friday.
Well, I think on Friday he will be a presidential figure, but again, I just want to emphasize, he will be a unique, and I have no idea what his speech will be like, and that's not really the key point. Donald J. Trump is going to be Donald J. Trump, just as, frankly, Andrew Jackson was always Andrew Jackson, Theodore Roosevelt was always Theodore Roosevelt. You get these very strong, powerful personalities, they are who they are. It's how they got to where they were. And he's not going to turn around tomorrow or next day and become somebody else's milquetoast idea of a controlled, orderly, structured president. That's not who he is.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees with you there. We'll see what happens. Newt, thank you very much. Great talking to you tonight.
Glad to be with you.
And count on Fox News for complete coverage of the inauguration of Donald Trump. Brett Baier and I will cover it all for you live this Friday from 11 to 5. Then stay tuned for the first 100 days. We'll be live from Washington that night as well. We're looking forward to that. A lot of excitement to come in the coming days. And coming up right here, Steve Harvey facing very harsh criticism because he went to Trump Tower to talk to the president-elect. We're going to show you how he was attacked. Plus, President-elect Donald Trump didn't shy away from hitting China on the campaign trail, and China is now firing back. Governor Mike Huckabee and Obama economic advisor Robert Wolf next on that.
We can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing.
Was then candidate Donald Trump and a collection of campaign trail attacks on one of his favorite targets, the country of China. The China is doing us wrong message became a rallying cry for many of his supporters, though the Chinese stayed mostly quiet on this until now, until today. The Chinese president is now fighting back. He is blasting Trump's message at the World Economic Forum, which they are now invited to and didn't used to be. Joining me now, former presidential candidate and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, along with Robert